Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Ultimate Bucket List, and on today's show, I'm here at the world famous and undisputed home of rugby. Twickenham Stadium. I don't need to add to that introduction, but for those of you who don't actually know what this place is, this is the world's most famous rugby stadium and is home to the England national rugby team. Arguably the best national rugby union side in the world, though there's a lot of countries that might disagree with that. And it's also home to the World Rugby Museum, which we'll be going in later. Many people consider this to be hallowed ground, because it's not just a stadium. Twickenham is also the base of the RFU themselves, the original governing body of the sport of rugby union worldwide. Effectively, this is the epicenter of the sport of rugby union, and many people across the world would give their right arm to be here. Built in 1902 and holding exactly 82,000 spectators, this is the fourth largest stadium in all of Europe, and is the largest rugby union specific stadium in the world. But what's this place actually like? Well, I'm here to find out. So after leaving Twickenham train station, you literally walk 10 minutes in this direction. And it's down one road, so you can't really miss it, mainly because it's effing huge. The most noticeable thing when you come in from the train station is the world famous line-out sculpture by none other than world-class artist Gerald Lang. It's a pretty cool statue and it gives you some amazing photo opportunities. But various parts of Twickenham are not open to the public. They fence it off and only open it on match days, so unfortunately you can't do laps around the place. Anyway, the entrance to the stadium tours is left of the statue and you'll need to go inside of the England Rugby store. After checking in, you'll get rounded up and introduced to your tour guide. This is Andy, by the way, he's our tour guide for today. And we're joined by one other guy. I think his name was Martin or Paul or something like that, but he's a trainee tour guide. And that's it. I'm literally the only person in this tour. So basically it's kind of like a private tour of Twickenham Stadium. So as you can imagine, I'm feeling kind of like a rock star at the moment. Anyway, the first part of the tour, you walk through the corner gates where you get your first glimpse of Twickenham Stadium. And boy, this is huge. I mean, it looks big in the pictures and videos, but it's only when you're up close and personal that you realise just how big this place is. If you told me that this stadium holds more than 82,000 fans, I would seriously believe you. It's pretty palatial everywhere you look. We get to spend a bit of time here and the tour guide tells you a lot about England rugby and about the stadium. And he tells you some very interesting facts, such as why England wear the rose as opposed to the three lions that every other team wears, and why England play in white. At this point you can fire him a lot of questions, but be sure to take plenty of photos and videos whilst you're down here. It's also when you're down here that you realise that it takes an army of men to make that pitch look pristine, and boy, these guys are working hard. Literally, they are walking about 7 miles each day just to mow the lawn. You'll also learn various facts that not a lot of people know about, such as why they put the flags on top of the goalposts, it's basically to help kicking, and why they have a weather vane, also to aid kicking. So anyway, once you've finished with the pitch, it's now time to walk outside towards the players' entrance gates. Now, not a lot of people know this, but rugby is a sport that is steeped in war. And this players' entrance, especially with these gates, commemorates our fallen heroes. If you look carefully, the roses down below eventually turn to poppies at the top. This is to signify that we should all be grateful for our forebears who fought for the freedoms that we enjoy today. And this is a very poignant reminder to the players that there are men and women who have died to give us the pleasure of being able to play in a free country. And whilst you're looking at the gates, you can pretty much tell that this is a giant stadium. It's time to go back into the stadium through the Spirit of Rugby entrance into the players' foyer. Here you learn a lot about the historical story behind the England national team. And once again, if you didn't know the story as to why England wear the rose and England play in white, it's basically down to rugby school, of where the sport originates from. He also tells you about some of the more famous matches that we've ever played as a rugby nation, most notably our 2003 World Cup win against the Aussies in Sydney. As you're walking through the stadium, you'll notice that everything is branded perfectly. They even have their own mini hospital. You know, it's a medical centre for players. Unfortunately, we don't get to go in that, but it would have been cool to see. Next up is the players' dressing room, and boy, this is very detailed. They've carved the details on the walls, with regards to what they've won, their best players, and you also get a short historical talk about the uniforms that England wear. But once you pass the England Rugby logo, you're met with one of the nicest changing rooms that you'll ever see, especially for a rugby team. Now it looks pretty plain right now, but generally shirts are hanging on these lockers. And they've taken them down because the stadium is kind of undergoing a little bit of a renovation. It's pretty cool to walk around, and this locker room is built to the minutest detail. So notice the ambient lighting, notice the England flag in between the lockers, and also notice the names on the walls. Believe it or not, if you've ever represented England, you are immortalised forever. This wall signifies every single player that has ever played for England. And it's a proud moment to see your name amongst these great men. What they also do is they put your name in the locker itself, so this is where the names of the previous players have sat before you. It's pretty inspiring, and it's done to motivate the players, and to remind them that representing England is a privilege, not a right. But the locker room and the surrounding areas are branded beautifully, and there's nothing that's really out of place or out of colour. By the way, this is the players' cold tub area. They still use the traditional baths, but they've replaced some of them with slightly more scientific cryogenic units. You get a short walk around the team's massage facilities. This is the coach's locker room, which is significantly smaller of course. And you get time to take your pictures and look at the carvings on the walls. Next up is the players' tunnel, and boy, this is a massive tunnel, and branded really beautifully. Red lights, red, white and black everywhere, before you let out of the tunnel and onto the pitch itself. Now for some reason we don't stay on pitch side for very long, and the reason why is probably because guys are working like crazy and around the clock to get the rugby pitch ready for its next match. So I would have liked to have spent a little bit more time here on pitch level, but it's still nice to see. Anyway, once you're done with the pitch, it's time to walk up the stairs towards the royal box. This is where the most important dignitaries and royalty sits, and it's also the place that you, as a player, will come and collect your medals or trophy if you've actually won anything here at Twickenham. And the view from here? Very nice indeed. I would pay serious money to sit here. You're right in the middle of all the action. And I can imagine that the tickets here aren't particularly cheap. You get a short talk as to the price of said facilities, though that's a little bit out of my price range at this moment in time. Maybe I'll win the lottery tomorrow and be able to afford it next week, maybe. But let's not consider that rather unrealistic fact and walk up the stairs to get a slightly high view of the stadium. But as with the pitch, we don't get to stay there for very long before it's time to walk down the stairs and all the way along the pitch. Believe it or not, that's the end of the guided tour. Now, I know what you're going to be telling me. Nin, there was nothing there, you didn't get to see all that much. And if I'd paid for just the tour, I'd probably have to agree with you. But included in the price is admission to the World Rugby Museum. It's competition time guys, and you get a chance to win this free bag of swag that I've just bought at the England store. Stick around to the end of the video to find out more. But until then, back to the video. So it's up the stairs you go and into the entrance. And so long as it's better than the rubbish tour and museum that I did at the Stade de France, I'll be relatively happy. As it turns out, this is actually a very good museum. You get to see some original artifacts, such as the original rulebook and some of the original balls used back in the day. And it also highlights the rivalry between England and Scotland. The first ever international match in any code of football, which was won by the Scottish, though we don't really kind of advertise that. And to this day, England and Scotland duke it out for this, the Calcutta Cup. so every time England and Scotland play each other, it's for this trophy, which is pretty spiffy. But the museum itself has lots of artefacts that you'll find interesting, and they're not just from England, they're from all the way around the world. There's also a section highlighting the RFU's staunch refusal to accept professionalism, especially from us lots here in Lancashire, which led to the split of the two codes of rugby. Rugby remained proudly amateur up until about the mid-90s, where they eventually had to accept professionalism as part of the modern game. Come on guys, it only took you over 100 years. There's a special exhibit celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Rugby Football Union. And it's mainly full of England memorabilia, but that doesn't detract from the fact that it's a very interesting exhibit. You get to learn a lot about the history of Twickenham Stadium, and get to see some paraphernalia that belong to various players. This shirt belongs to Owen Farrell. And as you walk through the museum, you'll learn an awful lot about rugby union. Not just the sport itself, but the sport in other countries. And you'll also learn about different kinds of rugby, such as wheelchair rugby, yes, believe it or not, that's a thing. And you'll also learn about the women's game. So it's a very educational museum indeed. And, no surprises here, there's also a big exhibit highlighting the Six Nations, arguably the best rugby tournament between nations in the world. And if you haven't been to or watched a Six Nations match, I highly recommend that you do so. They even have the Six Nations Champions Cup right here on display. But there's also an interactive area where you can test your own rugby skills. So for example, here, let's see how well you pack a scrum. Technically, this was shut, but I decided to have a go anyway, seeing as though I'm the only one in the museum. Want to test your vertical jump? Let's see how I do. Not very well, especially if I'm holding a camera. This is a test of reaction times. How fast am I? Well, not very fast, although at the time I thought I was doing well. And test your conversion kicking skills. Can I kick it? Yes, I can. Still got it. But have a walk around the museum slowly, because you get to learn an awful lot if you do take your time to read all the exhibits, and to take in what they're trying to teach you. You also learn about the unholy alliance that is the British and Irish Lions. I know we generally hate each other as nations, but when we're together, we crush rugby teams everywhere. But the best exhibit happens to be in here, and right on display in the middle is the Holy Grail, the 2003 Rugby World Cup. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Alright, that's enough of that. Just for the Australians that happen to wander into this museum, we've even displayed the ball that Johnny Wilkinson kicked to win the 2003 World Cup on Australian soil against the Australians. Yes, Aussies, we love to drink your salty tears. Anyway, that's the end of the museum, and what a museum it is. When you're finished, simply walk down the stairs, press the button, and you'll be let out back into the club shop. It's a very lovely club shop, mine, and you can buy all sorts of rugby paraphernalia here. England shirts, British and Irish Lions stuff, and overall really good place to shop in, and the staff are very lovely too. Now Eagle Eye viewers will know that there's a stadium literally here, but there's another rugby stadium that's across the street. What's with that? Believe it or not, there's actually two stadiums here in the town of Twickenham. There's the main Twickenham Stadium, which is the tour that you've just seen me go on, and there's this place, Twickenham Stoop, which is home to Premiership side Harlequins. Now, the reason why there's two stadiums is because Harlequins, though they are a professional side, can't really fill out an 80,000 seat stadium, so they play here, at the Stoop. Now, it's called the Stoop because of a famous former player called Adrian Stoop, and this stadium holds about 18,000 spectators, which is plenty. If you can't get tickets to an England game, or if England aren't playing, I highly recommend that you come here and try and get some Harlequins tickets instead. Unfortunately, they don't do tours here, mainly because
it's a tiny stadium and there's nothing really interesting around here to see, if you are doing the Twickenham Stadium, literally walk across the street and have a look at the stoop.
Now whilst you're here, you might as well explore the town of Twickenham. Now, it's not that big and there's not all that much to it, but it does have some nice roadside eateries, this lovely river where you can cross the bridge and walk along the River Thames and feed the ducks, or the Canada geese in this case. And there's lots of traditional looking streets, pubs and buildings that will make you feel that you're in the south of England, mainly because you are.
Now, the town of Twickenham itself, well, it's very nice, but admittedly, there's really not that much to it.
But overall guys, if you are a fan of rugby union, I highly recommend that you come to Twickenham at least once in your life.
Okay Nin, I'm sold. What do I need to do? Well, you need to come here to Twickenham. Twickenham Stadium is located in the town of Twickenham, and it's about half an hour outside of central London. The best way to get here is via the train. So I just took a train this morning from Victoria, changed at Clapham Junction, and here at Twickenham main train station, which is located in the centre of town. And that roughly took me about 30 minutes from start to finish. You can also drive here from the centre of London, or you can just use public transport, but the train is by far the easiest method, as it's literally a 10-minute walk from Twickenham station to Twickenham Stadium. The cost of both the tour and the museum was about £27. If you just wanted to do the museum, you can do, but that would cost you £15. And whilst it's a very nice stadium, I don't understand why you would just do the museum if you're travelling all the way over here. So I recommend that you do both the tour and the museum. If you want to see other parts of Twickenham, like Twickenham Town Centre or the Twickenham Stoop, they are literally walking distance. In fact, Twickenham Stoop is literally across the road, so it's really not that hard to find. Is there anything else I need to know? Yes, you have to book in advance because of all these stupid COVID rules, and because of COVID, they limit the amount of tours that go on, and they've closed a few of the exhibits in the museum. So bear that in mind, that even though it's a safe environment, there are various COVID restrictions that apply. But if you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share and subscribe. Comment on the comment section below, and if I get enough suggestions for other bucket list ideas, you know what to do. Tweet them at me. If you get enough suggestions, I'll be sure to do that. So guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Right guys, it's competition time, and I'm giving you the chance to win this England goodie bag, which I bought from the England store, that comprises of an England hat, an England scarf, this England bag, and I will also send you any England shirt of your choice in your size. To enter, click on the link in the description below, and help me share my content if you like this sort of thing. Good luck!
It's starting to rain. I hate the fact that it's starting to rain, and I'm next to a busy road, and people are looking at me as if I'm a weirdo.